Hello, my creepy crew, my freaky friends, in a good way, of course. Welcome to episode 16 of Story Mysteries, Tales of Mysteries and Oddities. I'm so glad you're joining me today. In today's episode, I've got a collection of strange and spooky short stories, including a horrifying shrieking experience on a bike ride, a case of some disappearing co-workers, and getting a warning from the other side. Sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 16 of Story Mysteries, Tales of Mysteries and Oddities. My boyfriend has night terrors in which he talks to me about the terrifying supernatural beings that are in the room. In the first month of dating, before I knew I had to be afraid of sleep sometimes, he was sleeping over. In the middle of the night, I feel him grab my arm. He was sitting up, eyes closed, still asleep, but pointing to my bedroom door. He kept saying, "There is something outside the door. There is something outside the door. OMG, it is a person. It is coming in. OMG, it is coming in." I look. There were two leg-like shadows outside the door, and the door moved. No one else was home. I will never forget the feeling of just complete terror. He has then talked about the children playing in the attic, the old woman in the window, the man on the roof, the hooded figure in my closet, all while he is asleep. No recollection of it ever. Nothing more than just sitting up and talking to me about it. Daytime, he is the most happy, normal, awesome guy ever. 3 a.m.? Terrifying to me. Not scary exactly, but pretty weird. My coworkers disappeared for 2 or 3 minutes one day. This was about 10 years ago. About a month, 6 weeks or so after I started my first office job. The company was in the top 2 floors of an office building, and I think the setup was a bit jury-rigged somehow because the only way up to the top floor was through the fire escape. The lifts didn't go that high. We had to keep the top fire escape door permanently open because you couldn't open it from the inside. I've got no idea how you were supposed to get up there originally. It was the last day in that office before the company moved to a new building, and we were packing our things up, moving files and labeling computers and all that. My boss, who had a major sweet tooth, got peckish and asked me to go get some lollies from the 7-Eleven that was at street level in the building next door. I went down, bought something, and took the lift back up. The lights were out. I went to my office. We were on the lower floor, and it was padlocked shut. The other office on that floor, which had a glass door, was dark and empty. I knocked on the padlocked door, and when there was no answer, I went to the fire escape to check the upper level. The door was closed. I couldn't get right back to my floor. That door had closed behind me. So I walked down to the ground floor and took the lift back up. Everything was back to normal. The lights were on, doors were open, there were people. I mentioned what had happened, and no one knew what I was talking about. I thought it might have been a practical joke for a little while, but no one ever said anything about it. I was laying in my bed sleeping one night, and I woke up feeling uncomfortable. My daughter has health issues, and years of worry about her condition caused us to be light sleepers. When I woke up this night, I watched a white figure come down the hall from my daughter's room and go right by my door. At the same time, my dog slid off the bed. He didn't get up, just slid and followed the white figure. I was so freaked out, I got up and followed the dog to our front door. The dog was facing the door, looking out the glass and the door down the street. The moon was lighting up his face, and I noticed his eyes were completely shut. I put my hand on his neck, and he jumped. He was 100% asleep. I checked my daughter's room, and she was happily sleeping and in good health. I've often wondered what visited and how often it visited our home. I've also wondered if I've been the one staring out the front door instead of the dog completely asleep. Back when I just started working in a new town, my best friend was studying at the university one town over. We met once a week in the cinema in her town to the sneak preview. One night after the film was over, we said our goodbyes and I hurried to my car to drive home. When I rolled off the parking lot, I was hit by the thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to take the country road home instead of the highway? I shook my head, wondering where that thought came from, because taking that way would at least double the time I needed to go home, and I had to go to work early the next morning. So I headed towards the highway anyway. I'd never been scared of driving before or after that night, but I was almost shaking with fright when I rolled onto the highway. The road was quite empty, but eventually I closed up to a truck. On any normal day, I'd just overtake it, but I couldn't bring myself to do so. Somehow, that truck meant safety to me. Thoughts crossed my mind about what the last thoughts of people getting hit by wrong-way drivers are. Again, no idea where they came from. Right before I reached my exit, a wrong-way driver passed us by. As of today, I have not found a logical reason for my fear that night. I didn't listen to the radio. I had a CD playing. There wasn't music or radio in the cinema as well, and it was well before the time of smartphones. Something or someone warned me. The other night, my mom heard a crash in the basement. We both looked around for what fell. Didn't find anything. About a week later, we find some glass near a bookcase. A small painting that had been hanging over it had fallen behind the bookcase. It didn't make sense because the wire holding the painting was intact. The bookcase is like an inch away from the wall. The nail the painting was on was 1.5 inches long. How did the painting fall? There was hardly room for it to even fall behind the bookcase, much less come off its nail. Couldn't have been the cat. She's too old and sad to jump that high. Maybe a tiny earthquake? Too weird. It will puzzle me for days to come. So, I am extremely afraid of the dark, but I don't believe in anything supernatural. However, sometimes my mind plays tricks with me and I get scared. This time, though, was different. I was biking home and took the shortcut through the forest. I was in the middle of the night, in the middle of December. So not only was it incredibly dark, but it was also cold as hell. After a short while, I started to hear something that sounded like dozens of screams, and when I turn around, I see what looks like a black cloud moving fast, and I mean really fast towards me. Before I have time to react, the black shrieking cloud overwhelms me. I lose balance, fall off the bike, and not until I look up do I notice that it wasn't a cloud, but a huge flock of birds that flew right through me. Just as I lay on the ground, laughing at my own temporary superstitious attack, I could hear a faint, raspy breathing noise coming closer and closer. I didn't even look at it, but figured that it might be something that the birds fled from. So I stood up and biked home. When I got home, I drank some tea to calm myself. I don't know what the raspy breathing noise was, but I don't think that it was anything unnatural. The only reason I fled the way I did that day was because I was already shaken due to the massive flock of birds scaring the soul out of me. Pennies. They are thrown on the same spot in my living room every now and then in the house I'm currently living in. But the kicker is, I've been alone in the room when they're thrown. I'll be watching TV and hear them scatter on the ground. Turn my gaze to see them spinning and rolling in the spot they fell. No pets, tables, holes in ceilings, or pennies around when this happens. I can't explain it, but pennies materialize and are thrown somehow in my house. And I've been saving them ever since. It's not scary or anything, but I have no clue how this is happening, and I like to think I'm a pretty rational person. As a teenager, I would babysit for my cousin. I was about 16 at the time. She and her husband had just moved into this large house and had a newborn daughter. I never liked the vibe of that house, but just thought I was being irrational. One morning, I'm alone with the baby, and I hear someone going down the stairs, a bang, and some murmuring. I tell myself the house is new and it's just settling and maybe the TV is on. I pick up the infant and make my way downstairs. Once you get to the bottom of the stairs, it opens up to a large living room to the left with a TV on the floor. To the right is the kitchen area. I go to the kitchen to make a bottle, and it feels like someone is watching me. I shake it off, but start packing up a diaper bag just in case. Not 2 minutes later, I hear the TV turn on. Volume all the way up to static white noise. I flip out. I run to the living room and turn it off. I call one of my cousins who lives nearby to come get me. As I'm talking to her on the phone, the TV turns on again. I waited for her outside after that. Later that night, we go back to drop off the baby and get my stuff I left there. We ring the doorbell. No answer. We hear them running up and down the stairs. We saw someone look at us through the window, and we can hear them talking and laughing. We have no clue what game they're playing, so we ring the doorbell again and start yelling at them. They're laughing at us now. We're getting irritated and start to leave. As we get in the car, here comes my cousin and her husband coming up the street in their car. We have no clue what happened that night. I don't believe in the paranormal, but I have no explanation for that. Me and my roommate were watching TV in the living room when all of a sudden we heard the click, click, click sounds of the igniters engaging in the gas stove in the kitchen. We were the only ones home, so we ran in there, and all of the burners were aflame, with The knobs for each burner were still in the off positions. We were able to turn on and off the knobs, and the flames went out, but that freaked me out, though my roommate didn't seem to care. We couldn't come up with any explanation for it. Never happened again. When I was 16, I was at a local mall by myself. I noticed a large man kept going where I would go, and just gave me a bad gut feeling. After about 15 minutes of him following me around, I go into a Starbucks, and sure enough, he follows. This Starbucks was right next to the mall's public restroom, and I stupidly decided to go into the women's restroom thinking he wouldn't follow. I go into a stall, lock the door, and pull my feet up so they can't be seen. No more than 10 seconds later, I hear the bathroom door open and someone walking in. The man stopped in front of my stall door and just stands there facing it for what felt like minutes. He was so close to the door that his boots were protruding into the stall. Then, without any words spoken from either of us, he left, and I never saw him again. Scariest few minutes of my life, and I'm still so mad at myself for isolating myself in a bathroom. I was 5 years old and we were at my grandma's house. My mom put me down for a nap in the spare room. I had my favorite blankie, handmade by my great-grandma, so it was special, and my mom laid down with me for a second so I could fall asleep. I was closer to the wall. I was playing with my blankie, and it slipped down between the bed and the wall. I told my mom, and we tried to reach down and get it, but it wasn't there. We looked under the bed, no blanket. My mom was confused and started taking off all the sheets and covers, and it wasn't there. We pulled the bed out from the wall, no blankie. Nothing between the mattresses. There was no vent or anything it could have fallen in. There was nothing under the bed it could have gotten caught in. No pets, so nothing dragged it away. My grandma looked for it for days afterwards and found nothing. I have thought about this for years, and my mom and I still talk about it. Well, that is all for episode 16. I hope you enjoyed these tales. If you did, please like, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. And if you can share this video and my channel with a friend, it would help me out tremendously as I am growing my channel. Also, if you have any true experiences that you would like to share, please email me at itsmisstorymystery@gmail.com. If you haven't seen my previous episodes or catalog of shorts, be sure to check those out. Thank you for tuning in to Ms. Story Mysteries, Tales of Mysteries and Oddities. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay marvelously mysterious.